So in today's video, we're going to be taking apart and completely rebuilding this pair of 875s. I've done 875s before, but the difference with these ones is that the customer chose stacked soles. I've done stacked soles before, but what made these ones particularly exciting for me is that he, as a customer, has chosen, unprovoked by me, to use the Vibram Cristy thin sole. I added those to the website not that long ago and have been desperate to do a video using those because I think that they are going to be one of the more popular stacked sole options. No more grip than the standard Cristy moreflex. Well, that says no more grip. The tread pattern is the same as the standard Cristy moreflex or the Red Wing traction tread, except for it is made from a much more durable compound. So if you wanted to maintain an original aesthetic but have all of the benefits of a more durable secondary sole, that sole is going to be the perfect choice. I've mentioned before that stacked soles are incredibly popular. You get the best of everything when you buy a Goodyear welted shoe, have a leather midsole, and then stack the soles on top of that. Stacking soles just means that you have one sole and then another one stuck to the bottom of that. So the advantages to doing stacked soles is that you can change that secondary sole. So if you manage to wear it out, you can change it without disturbing the rest of the boot. So the first resole after getting this done will be cheaper because you only have to buy one set of outsoles only, take off the old ones, stick the new ones on, job done. The advantage to doing this to a Goodyear welted shoe is you're just adding more and more parts to it that are replaceable before you have to do anything too extensive. So essentially, the way that a Goodyear welted shoe is made, you never really want to have to change the footbed. You want to protect that damn footbed at all costs. After that, you have got welts. That part changeable, so you can change the welts as many times as you like, as long as they are hand stitched on there. There'll be no more holes in the upper. You could change those infinitely. Then there is a midsole, changeable, whilst reusing the welts. So you can do maybe 3 or 4 sets of stitches through the welt before you had to change it. They would be going into different midsoles, but onto the original welt. So if you can keep that midsole and those stitches intact through 1 resole, maybe 2, you keep that section of the boot looking as good as new, don't have to pay for it. Next layer down is the wedge sole, which is completely replaceable without disturbing any of the stitching or the midsole. And then the outsole, which again is replaceable without disturbing any of the other parts. So you are defending that boot, which you don't want to have to do work to because it's expensive. You can resist against doing anything to the upper or the footbeds or the welts for a while when you fit stacked soles. If you put your boots through hardship and you do some damage to the other parts, then they will need to be fixed or changed anyway. So separation of the welts to the midsole is going to allow water into that cavity, which will degrade the inside of the boot. I wouldn't recommend, if you have lots of separation between the welt and the midsole, that you just change outsoles because the inside of the boot will suffer. Changing the outsole is going to give you a whole bunch of time that you can walk around just continuing to degrade the inside of the shoe, which would then make ultimately the next resole, when you do take it apart that far, more expensive. So it's always best to change things when appropriate rather than trying to get as long as possible out of everything. If you can, it's a good thing, but don't sacrifice the shoe in exchange for more time. That's enough of that. And let's get started. beginning of the video that I wouldn't go too much into depth on how to clean and maintain a pair of boots because I think it's a huge subject and I won't be able to fit it in here. But real briefly, I am just going to cover mink oil. So I've cleaned probably thousands of Red Wings now, and the reason why I clean so many of those as well, by the way, if you send in a pair of shoes and it involves me having to re-stitch through the welt, or you're having new welts, there's no better time to give a boot a full-on deep clean than when most of the boot, or sole system anyway, has been removed. So I take that opportunity. Any shoe that comes in here that needs cleaning and is having a midsole, so I am stitching it, I'll also clean those included in the price. If you don't want me to clean them because you want to maintain the same look that your boot had before, do tell me, because I will just automatically clean, condition, and get the leather in the best possible shape that I can before I carry on with the shoe repair. That brings me to these. So this pair of boots and many, many other boots, these ones weren't that bad. The leather itself isn't that bad, but 9 times out of 10, the most damaged boots, so the ones that have the most dramatic before and after pictures, if you've been on my Instagram, are usually treated with mink oil. Mink oil definitely has its place on the market, and I am not saying that you shouldn't use it, because used appropriately, I'm sure that some people get results that they're happy with, and in certain circumstances, it does have its benefits. One of the things it gets marketed as would be waterproofing. At the end of the day, a pair of heritage style boots, there are brands out there that have found a way to make them more waterproof, but a pair of heritage style boots have got way too many holes in them to be particularly waterproof. So you've got stitching here, which is holes right the way through. You've got stitching here, which is holes right the way through. Essentially, you're not going to be able to make this boot waterproof. You will be able to add an element of water resistance by applying a waxy product, i.e. mink oil. The drawback to a waxy product, or if you're putting something on leather that is going to stop water coming through, it will also stop oils coming through. So a lot of these leathers need oils. Mink oil has got a combination of both oil and wax. So the very first application that you put on will darken lighter leathers. I think it says it on the tin. The drawback to that, what's left behind once the oil has soaked in, is a waxy coating. So when I clean a pair of boots, I know that they've got wax oil on them before I clean them, but you can tell if they've got a lot because the water left in my sink will have like a layer of wax floating on the surface. That layer of wax then stops any future applications of conditioner, mink oil, anything in particular that you put on the boot. It stops that soaking in. So the leather underneath that layer of wax tends to dry out. These have been cleaned with saddle soap, which I won't go into that in depth, but saddle soap isn't necessarily the best thing for continuous maintenance, but it certainly does what I need it to do, which is strip a boot back to next to nothing. I'm going to put oil back on these, and I'll probably include that in the video right now, me oiling these boots. Now's the best time. Welts are off. I can get to that little section of leather that's underneath the welts, which you don't normally have access to. Again, like, it's a good time to clean them because I can scrub that area. But yeah, mink oil prevents more oils and nutrients getting back to the leather. So I often find after you've scrubbed a pair of boots, the leather that's underneath is not in the best condition, which is why there's such a dramatic transformation between a before and after of a heavily mink oiled boot. Other thing worth mentioning when it comes to mink oil is that people, when they buy their first pair of Red Wings or any particularly expensive shoes or boots, they want to take care of them. You want to look after it, you want to protect your investment. So you want to apply things that in advertising might say that they would extend the life of your footwear. Mink oil in particular, when you apply that, leaves that waxy coating on the surface, especially if you're then liberal and you keep applying it, you're going to get quite a layer of that waxy stuff on the surface. That, in warm conditions, would become a little sticky. When it's sticky, dust sticks to it. That dust holding in the creases of a boot, so where you're flexing it like that, that dust in there will start to cut through the leather, which would appear as what looks like a crack. Now you see a crack, you're going to panic and think that the boots are under conditioned and apply even more mink oil. So it's like a vicious circle of effectively shortening the life of your boot with a product which is being marketed as extending the life of your boot. So mink oil in particular is one to be very careful of.
when applying it. I'm not saying which products you should use or shouldn't use, but me personally, I like to use something that hasn't got any wax in it. If it's going to rain or I'm going to be out in weather that's going to get my feet wet, I'll put a waterproof pair of shoes on. I won't try and make a pair of leather shoes waterproof. There's other ways of keeping your feet dry with leather footwear like Gore-Tex liners. There's pros and cons to that too, but essentially this is just to cover mink oil and how you need to be a little careful when applying it, how much you apply, how often you apply, and that there are other products which might be slightly better. So yeah, no. that is everything on this pair of Red Wing 875s. And they have had the stacked soles package off of our website using a white vibram Cristy wedge and the red vibram Cristy thin secondary sole. In addition, they have also had new chocolate flat welts, and if you opt for new welts from the website, you'll also get the option to choose your welt stitching colour. That's only available if you choose to have new welts, because I could not guarantee that you'll get perfect stitching when using old welts, and a coloured thread just draws attention to that part, so I like to avoid giving people that option. You can either go with the original colour, or generally speaking I message everybody and ask if they want black or brown stitching because that would hide it. I am obviously getting distracted talking about welts because I love talking about welts, and I think I'm probably going to do an entire video on this because the welt stitching on these was absolutely perfect. And as much as I want to talk about welts, I'm not going to, and I will save it for a separate video. So I'll include a link in the description below which will take you to our website where you can find this exact package, and you will also find in the description below a discount code to get you 10% off of all resoles ordered through the website. You will also find the website section relating to welts where you can find this, some other styles, and obviously the stitch colour. Now, the thing I was excited about with this video was actually this particular sole. So the Vibram Cristy Thin, I added it to the website not that long ago, and I have been desperate for somebody to choose it, but nobody had. However, somebody finally did, and it was on these. So the reason I was excited about it is stacked soles just gives you all of the benefits with very few cons. The one con to this is that it's slightly more expensive than just having a singular sole for a singular job. I'm not going to get distracted talking about the variety of soles available because I'm going to do a separate video on that one too, because there is hundreds of options, loads of different compounds, and they're all very specific to specific tasks. So I'm not going to get into it. All I'm going to talk about is this particular one because it's new. So this Vibram Cristy Thin sole is made from the City XS compound from Vibram, which I never really read the technical sheets for their abrasion resistance and all of those different elements, but I feel like it might be relevant here. So there's two compounds, mostly two compounds that I offer on the sole packages. You've got Mega Grip, you've got City XS, you've also got the Cristy moreflex, and then there's Mont. So the Mont compound is in the Montagna sole, and it is also in the 1220 Jankout, which I use a lot for the stacked soles. This is City XS, this. It's in the somewhat iconic traction tread style pattern, which gives you good grip in most urban environments. It's worse than useless on loose ground, so I don't recommend this particular sole or tread pattern if you're going to head into any sort of loose ground or loose surface. This will not do you any favours. So the City XS compound boasts that it's a medium soft rubber with unparalleled grip, especially in wet urban environments. I can vouch for that. I've got it on a pair of my own shoes, not this exact sole, a different sole, but in the same compound, and I think that it is fantastic in an urban environment. Just to very quickly cover the abrasion resistance, hardness, some of those elements. I'm going to have to get the book because I am a father of two and have the data retention capacity of 0. I cannot absorb any of it and hold it in there for any more than a few seconds. So I'll read it straight from the book. The Vibram Cristy moreflex. Abrasion resistance, less than 200 or up to 200 cubic millimeters. I honestly, I don't understand any of what I'm looking at. I'm pretty sure that the higher the number, the less abrasion resistance it is. I'm going to go ahead and guess, but I'd like it if somebody did correct me. That high number, 200, I'm going to assume it's based on if you held that sole against a abrasive belt, for example, that was moving at a fixed speed, and you held it against it at a fixed pressure, it's how much material could be removed in a certain fixed amount of time. That would give you a good benchmark for a whole bunch of soles. So you just hold a sole against a piece of sandpaper that's the same grip, moving at the same speed for the same amount of time, and the more material you remove, the less abrasion resistance it has. So Vibram Cristy moreflex is the worst. It is the least abrasion resistant.
In exchange, it is the softest and most comfortable. So it's got the most bounce to it. As you walk around, it's like walking on a cloud. But you are going to wear that cloud out very, very quickly. So it's best to put another sole underneath that so that you can have all the benefits of the Cristy moreflex wedge with all the benefits of a more durable secondary sole. So the XS City compound, that has got an abrasion resistance of 135. So nearly double that of the Cristy moreflex. In comparison to the Mont compound, which is the Montagna, which is famously known for its incredible abrasion resistance. I hate working with it because it is horribly difficult to sand. It obviously being very abrasion resistant, designed for the motorbike industry, it sucks. Like when you put that against a piece of sandpaper, it doesn't really go anywhere. It just gets hot, so you can't work very fast. You have to keep letting go or moving around the shoe to ensure that you don't concentrate too much heat in one area. It stinks because it gets so damn hot. This stuff, the City XS, is very similar in its abrasion resistance. So Mont is 110 and the City XS is 135. Which means that if you were to hold them against sandpaper of the same grip for the same length of time, they would wear away very similarly. When it comes to stacked soles, the 1220 Jankout, which is made with that Mont compound, is the thickest. I think it's about 8 millimeters, which means you've got 8 millimeters of wear before you would have to change that secondary sole. The downside to that 1220 Jankout sole, it's got deep tread, so it's going to pick up a lot of dirt. So if you're wearing your shoes in an environment that goes from dirt to a clean environment, you don't particularly want a sole that's going to carry dirt into your cleaner environment because it's going to pick it up, stay in the tread and stay there. You would like a sole that's going to let that dirt stay outside in exchange for some grip, which is where this tread pattern comes in because it doesn't really pick up and hold dirt. We'll pick up and hold some. It's always going to be a trade-off, and I'll cover that in the soles video. So that might be it, actually. Yeah, that might be it. This is just a really good sole. It's new to me. I like it a lot. It's made from a fantastic compound, and it comes in a variety of colours, which is one of the things that I actually do like about this the most, is that not many soles come in a full spectrum of colours, whereas the Vibram Cristy Thin comes in red, white, green, black. So you could stack this on top of a white wedge sole, and it would be difficult to distinguish from a distance whether you even had stacked soles. So if you really like that original look, you could achieve it with this stacked sole package, but have all of the positives of having the stacked soles. Probably enough talking. So if you go on our website, you will find this exact sole package. You will find a discount code in the description below that will get you 10% off of all resoles ordered through the website. And I'll see you in the next video.